Hello and welcome back. This is Season 2 of the Onside Kick, an NFL podcast brought to you by Fox Sports Australia. I'm your host, Chris Janssen. With me, as always, is my good friend Ted. How you doing, Ted?
Good, Christopher. How you doing, buddy?
Very well, thank you. And it must be mentioned, we have another special guest this week, Mr. Ben Griffiths, formerly of the Richmond Tigers, now plying his trade in the US of A. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very good. It's a sunny day over here, so I've got no complaints from my end.
And currently you're in Los Angeles?
Yeah, still in LA. We're about half an hour east of the USC campus, but still floating about.
The USC campus itself is in LA, or it's just outside?
Yeah, it's pretty much downtown LA. I think technically it's in South Central, but yeah, it's about 10-minute drive from the CBD.
And around the town, do you see more Trojans gear around or more Ram stuff getting flown around?
Is that a joke? That's a joke.
It's got to be Trojans, I'm guessing.
100%.
On a Saturday, it's Trojan.
Yeah.
On a Sunday, it's all Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are starting to get some traction in LA because that was a big problem when they made the move from St. Louis, right?
Well, after last year, they got a bit of traction. I think.
The whole Super Bowl.
That'd probably help.
Pretty big deal when you're trying to get a fan base.
Yeah. Sorry, Chargers.
We might wind the clock all the way back, if that's okay, mate. Start with where it all began for you. You grew up in Victoria, I'm pretty sure, in Melbourne as well. Played junior footy for the Eastern Rangers. Is that correct? What can you tell me about your very first memories of playing footy? Did you always were you already launching 60-metre torps for the old Eastern Rangers?
No, I was never game enough to launch one in a game. Look, I started Auskick. I think my path was pretty similar to a lot of guys that go through the system, and did Auskick, played junior footy, and then was lucky enough to get recruited to Eastern Rangers, and then from there, fortunate to get a spot on Richmond's list for 8 years. So I think like the first my school, funnily enough, on Aths Day had an event called Super Kick, and that was like the one event I was pretty good at. So
good name.
It's translated pretty well.
So from an relatively early age, did you have an inkling that maybe the NFL or at least American football was an opportunity as a punter as well, or it was something that sort of came across later during your AFL career?
Oh, for sure, came across it later. I think I never really knew that a punter and just kicking the football was something that you could do. And then we came over here, I think it was 2012, for a training camp with Richmond. And we went to a game, I think it was Arizona versus, I can't remember they were playing, but that was kind of my first real exposure to NFL and then the college system too, because we were training out of the U of A. And then that kind of like sort of fed into it a little bit. And then as I became more familiar with the game, it then was something that I was always kind of thinking about.
Had you grown up like watching the NFL as well? Were you a fan as a kid, or?
It doesn't sound like it, if I'm being honest. If you're like, I didn't know people could punt in it, it's...
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I remember watching a game at my nana's house when I was like 14, and just watching it. It was like, oh, it's American football, whatever. But then when I was at Richmond, we had a fantasy league going. So through like competitive banter and whatnot with teammates, you kind of I followed the game more closely than I had before, and it wasn't until I got over here that I actually learnt the game, but certainly liked the appeal of it.
Who are some of the other big names of the Richmond boys that also get around the NFL? Because it's quite popular these days, it seems like.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good appreciation for American sporting culture from Australia. Jack Rewalt was a massive fan. He took it pretty seriously, and still does. Dave Asprey was another one. Sean Grigg and Chris Newman.
Yep.
Newey liked to think he was pretty good and pretty switched on with his team selection, but he made some pretty questionable decisions. And
he was running 3 tight ends in the Superflex, as Teddy hates to see from me every week.
It's 3 tight end set in fantasy. What are we doing? Wow.
Hey.
I've got too many options. I don't know what to say to you boys. Hey, but anyway, let's turn back. It was 2009 when you were drafted by the Richmond Tigers, and then made your debut in 2010. You were the same draft class as Dusty as well, I believe. You spent your whole career playing with Dusty. What was playing with the big fella like?
Oh, pretty special. You get a front row seat to like one of the best acts ever. So, I mean, it's hard to kind of enjoy it in the moment when you're playing a game, but certainly, at least when I left, I could appreciate it a little bit more because I could, when you sit there and you're detached from it and you can just watch this guy do his stuff, like it's pretty special. And I mean, you know what his highlight reel's like. He's done some pretty crazy stuff. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing, I was the pick before Nat 5 too, so I feel,
that's a good claim.
yeah, probably the biggest highlight of my career. Honestly.
Handy footballer, Mr. Fife.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been a bad pickup for the Tigs, I don't reckon.
They've done all right, mate.
Fife and Dusty together could have been a pretty elite combination as well. But 2017, I think you were still there. Were you part of the premiership team the year they won in 2017?
I didn't play in the game. I was still there though. And I played in the VFL we didn't win it, but in the grand final the week before.
What was that like at the end of your AFL career? Was it, to do with injuries? Was there a specific moment where you thought, maybe this isn't quite working out? What should be the next step? Were there conversations with coaches? How does the sort of delisting process work, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so 2017, I had a string of concussions and I was out of the game. I think it was like 3 months I didn't play. And then I came back at the end of the year. But I think that kind of period of time put a lot of things in perspective for me. And then at the end of the season, Ben Lennon, one of my other teammates, had just committed to Utah. He's not there anymore, but that kind of like fed into the whole thought of me coming over here at some point. And I just went to ProKick to have a conversation and find out what it was about and what it kind of looks like. And then I was still contracted for 2018 when I made the decision to step away and then commit to USC.
How hard was that decision, mate?
It was hard because I had to tell people and I felt like I was letting people down. But when you're in that position, I knew straight away that it was something I had to do. Yep. So, I mean, it was an easy decision, but just really hard at the same time because I didn't want to feel like I was failing other people.
And after you did tell your friends and family, was there much pushback or was it just like mostly positive noise at the end of it?
No, everyone was so supportive. Mum and Dad. Mum was playing devil's advocate at the start.
They'll do that.
I think she was just trying to keep me in the country. But Dad was super supportive and I think he saw the long-term vision of what I was trying to get out of it. And then even when I told Dimmer, he was so supportive of it and I couldn't be more thankful of how much support I got in the end for making that decision. And
you did go to USC, currently undefeated, ranked seventh.
Yeah, it would have been nice to still be on the team.
Who would you rather win a flag, Tigers or USC?
That's a hard one. I mean,
I know, man.
I'm going to say USC. I think like Richmond's, they won 3 out of the last 5, whatever it is.
Yeah,
so
they've had more than enough. You mentioned that it was you had to explain the reasons why you wanted to go across. When you first decided to make that switch, was it a financial thing or a desire to play more professionally, maybe somewhere else, or to have a different type of a footballing career? What were the biggest reasons for you for deciding you wanted to have a crack at it?
A lot of it was geared towards getting a degree, honestly, because throughout 2017, I was kind of having these, like, I'd go through waves of just not knowing what I was going to do outside of football because what I was dealing with was making me question, like, is football even something I still want to play?
Yep.
Given the uncertainty of like long-term, whatever, that's another discussion. But like,
concussion things,
all the concussion stuff. But like for me, it was about what's my life outside of sport in general, because sport is only such a small portion of who we are as people and what we do in the span of our life. So I wanted to get a degree, but the appeal was that I could obviously still play sport at a really high level and be part of a team, and then also the ambition to go to the league over here as well. It was just a great kind of stepping stone for that.
What was that transition like? You've come from the AFL, which was, the top professional level in Australia. Is it strange to sort of have to take, I guess you're 28, to take half a step back into semi-professional college football where, obviously I know the professionalism in college is still extremely high, but to take a step back, you're not recognised by people on the street or anything anymore. What did it feel like for you to walk into that environment at USC?
I was lucky because, my manager before I left, Paul Connors, he was like really good in making sure that I was looking after my money really well, and that I think put myself in a better position to be able to make the decision and feel really comfortable about it. Because it is hard when you forego a contract and then you're on a college stipend check, which is, for a lot of guys, it's between like $1,500 and $1,800 a month.
Plus whatever else they were sprinkling on top, right, mate?
None of it. Well, I wasn't getting any of that. There's some bigger dogs on that team that I think get the sprinkles.
Yeah, Drake London might have been taking a bit of that off you, I think, mate.
I dare say so, yeah.
But yeah, then to arrive in a place like USC, mate, you're pretty lucky. That's a massive college team to come into in the USA. Was it a variety of options that you had, or was it that was one that seemed like the clear best offer to take?
That was kind of like the only one I had at the start. Just the way that ProKick kind of operates is they'll try and match the player to where they think they'll fit. And I hadn't committed to the program, but the USC guy was like fishing around for someone when I happened to go and chat to Chappie. And so it kind of happened really quick, and I was extremely lucky with, I guess, the timing of it all, which kind of fed into why the decision was so easy to make in the end. It just seemed like the right thing.
For those that don't know at home, USC is one of the biggest football colleges in America. It's like Notre Dame, Alabama, USC historically. It's been a tough run last decade or so since Reggie left, but they're back this year, man. Like I said, ranked 7th, just one behind the mighty University of Tennessee, where I went. Go the Vols. How's your team doing, CJ?
FAU unranked as usual. In the mighty CUSA East, they're not doing so good.
Now some college questions are done, man. What's next for you? What are your prospects over the next 6 months, the year? What are you looking forward to on the horizon?
I guess it's kind of hard to plan at the moment because of just waiting for my visa. So
yep.
I'm just training, and then whenever it comes through, I'll be ready to kind of try and get onto a practice squad if the season's still going, or try and get onto a team for the summer training camp and go from there and compete for a spot. It was frustrating because I went to the Chargers rookie camp and a portion of the OTAs. So I kind of got a taste of it, and very similar to how AFL teams operate. And so it was kind of hard to be forced away from that. And I'm hoping that I get another chance to kind of get back into that environment.
You say it's similar, professional AFL to professional NFL, the preseason camps. Were there any stark differences between how the two operations run? Yeah,
just like the way it's structured. I mean, I guess like the similarities stop with kind of like how like the business is operated, contracts, and I mean there's some differences there, but just the way like the coaches talk to players and that sort of thing. Whereas like college is very much top down kind of
drill sergeanty.
Yeah, it's very militarian. You kind of get a bit more relationships, I think, in a professional setting. And do you think that's potential?
Sorry, mate. Do you think that's a new thing with coaches like McVeigh, this younger crop of coaches that seem to put an onus on having a rapport with their players in comparison to the Belichicks, those I mean, what's the Jags coach from last year? Yeah, you know, that military approach in the NFL seems to be slowly getting pushed out by these younger coaches.
I think there's probably a multitude of reasons why, but like you think about like if a player's getting paid $90 million and he doesn't want to do something that coach wants him to do, but there's a team on the other side of the country that's like, oh, come over here, we'll love you up and we'll actually treat you with respect. They're going to go to that team.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like stems into the next point I was going to make, is that I think coaches are trying to create an environment that guys love and want to be around.
Yeah.
And I think from that, like you get way better productivity. So it's kind of, I don't know, there's a whole other bunch of reasons.
It's never one reason, right? When these like changes sweep a sport, but there has been some changes for sure. You just have a look at the way Kirk Cousins is reacting with his new coach in comparison to last year, where it looked like they were enemies. And all of a sudden, the Vikings are 4-1. So with Kirk Cousins still at the helm. Yeah, and just being around that Chargers OT, did you see a similar vibe there? Young team, some great players. Obviously, Sherbert Herbert, what a gun. Young coach, former defensive coordinator of the Rams. Was good vibe around the Chargers.
Yeah, great vibe. I think like there's more room to have a bit of fun too. Like the coaches were having fun with the players in the meeting, like reading out the fines and stuff like that. But I think it is like you have like a young coach that comes in with a fresh quarterback who's clearly really talented. And I think they're building like a really nice environment to kind of cultivate that and hopefully do some special things.
What are some of the more funny fines that people get on? I'm guessing like late to practice and stuff, you get a little one, but what's something else that people are always doing or forgetting?
I wasn't there for long enough, but I think the one that they read out was coach forgot the name of one of the players.
Was he on the practice squad or is he one of the real 53 as well? Jeez.
I think he was maybe one of the rookies actually.
Okay. No, he's given a small amount of lenience then.
Yeah.
Talking about that, building an environment and having that sort of experience, I wanted to talk a little bit about at USC, if you were lucky enough to play a bowl game or if you went into any, you had a winning record at least 2 of the seasons, correct?
Well, definitely not last year.
No, not that one.
And then, and then the COVID year, we only played 6 games.
True, West Coast.
And we went to the Pac-12 championship game, lost to Oregon. And then in 2019, my first year, we went to the Holiday Bowl and played Iowa down in San Diego.
The Hawkeyes.
Yeah, we scouted their quarterback run. The whole week we were in the hotel, and then he's come out on game day and done it 3 times to us, and we didn't stop him.
You just saw the coach on the sideline ripping the headphones in half.
Oh, that's great.
Well, we had a pretty big clean out after that year, but it made me question why we needed to be in the hotel for a week of preparation.
Were you part of a rivalry game? Is it UCLA? Is that the big rivalry there? Did you get to play against UCLA?
Yeah, I got to play against them 3 times. And then the other one is Notre Dame too. We went there twice.
That'd be crazy. That would be crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of the biggest game I've played in. Like their crowd is phenomenal.
Yep.
The atmosphere is, that's like what a true football.
They're huge. They've had their own TV rights deal since the early 90s. Like Notre Dame are
crazy.
Legit. That'd be crazy.
And what, field rushes, what sort of experiences did we have? Did we have the full college experience going on? Did you get lifted up off the ground ever by the quarterback? Or?
Nah, I think I was the one doing most of the celebrating. Every time I'd do the hold for the field goal, I'd try and get around and like either slap the helmet or on the backside of all the linemen just to say thank you.
Yep. Doing the work, mate.
There was one time, one of the left guard, Andrew Voorhees, I tapped him on the helmet and he got real mad because I think he had a few knocks on the last series. He's like telling me not to hit him on his head again. I was a bit sheepish after that one.
Well, it's because you're a sneaky big fella, mate. You must be at 6'7". You must be the biggest punter in the history of college football, eh?
One of the bigger ones, I think, yeah. But it's funny because you feel so small around some of the guys. Like that Andrew Voorhees I was just mentioned, he's my height, but like 320 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
That's
heavy. Hey man, you mentioned that you had 3 concussions in your AFL career. Obviously, a really bad scare with the Miami Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa a couple of weeks ago. Has there been much conversation around concussions from the coaching staff going down to the players? Like just in the last couple of weeks, seeing the severity of these concussions to quarterbacks and other players, obviously.
They're pretty conservative about it. And I think this year actually was the first year they made like linemen, linebackers, anyone who has contact during a practice wear those padded helmets.
Yeah, those really cool ones.
Yeah, the ones that make their head look like an alien.
Yeah.
So I think like they're being really proactive about it, but I don't know. I think clearly there was a failure in letting him play the week after being concussed.
He had the wobbly boot on the Sunday. They let him play the Thursday. Big error. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like there's a few questions that need to be asked there, but I think from a whole, I don't know if they're just checking the boxes over here or if they're trying to actually establish meaningful change and they actually care about the players' welfare.
Yeah,
similar. Same questions are being asked over here with the NRL and AFL, mate. So are they looking after their bottom dollar or are they looking after their players? We will see in the years to come, I think.
I feel like, especially though for the NFL, it definitely feels like a lot of times, I know this is probably murky territory for you to be discussing on a podcast, but it feels like it's a business direction a lot of the times, the moves they make. And it doesn't, even though everyone acknowledges it, it seems like they're happy to sort of push it to the side and pretend that it's not really happening, even though now it's all out in the open and it seems to be like much more in the limelight.
Well, it's a shame it took such a serious head knock to Tua for this discussion to amp up again. But it has, and even if they are chasing their bottom dollar, if players end up safer, who cares?
Exactly.
You know, the priority is player safety, given what we know about head injuries in 2022.
You must still have a bit of fear, I guess, or apprehension in a way, because not only, people laugh and say that punters aren't, you're involved in the same way you were in AFL, but on special teams, these are the biggest, fastest athletes. You're looking across the other side, potentially, if you make it to the NFL, fingers crossed, then there'll be blokes like Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, staring into your eyes. That's still pretty intimidating, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, you just look at the ball under the snap and hope they're not actually coming.
Yeah, just hope your teammates are doing their job, right?
Yeah.
Those that are meant to block.
What's that, sorry?
Those that are meant to block, please block. While I punt this ball.
Yeah, that's all you can hope for, really.
Yeah. So so mate, once you're definitely going to get this visa. That's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so it's just that the green card takes a long time.
Yeah, and then sorry, dude, and then you're just champing at the bit. You're going to get some tryouts in.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm like fighting against time a little bit because I am getting a bit older and there's a new crop of punters coming out at the end of this year. So
not many 6'7" Aussie former AFL players though, dude. You might have a leg up there. So will you watch games on Sunday, see like the Jets kicker just shank it 22 yards straight to the left and like, ooh. I could get a try.
A little bit. A little bit of me resonates with him because it's like I've been there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, we will also be hoping for teams that we don't follow to shank their punts, brother. For sure.
Appreciate it.
Hey, but you were were you waiting around? What was draft night like for you? Were you still expecting a call at the end of last season with USC, or were you were thinking maybe an undrafted offer might come in, or just an attendance to one of these camps as well?
Yeah, I guess like watching the draft, it was more so to see. I wasn't really expecting to get drafted. It was more to see if where other guys had ended up, because that would affect where we'd try and get placed. Because it's like it's funny, but if you don't get drafted, you actually have more power in where you go because you can kind of choose a little bit.
Yep.
And then I had a really good local day down at the Chargers, and they also didn't bring back their punter from last year. So that kind of was naturally a pretty good fit, given it's a local team and just down the highway. So, yeah, we tried to – I mean, that's in the end why we chose to go there. And it's just the visa stuff's kind of held me back a bit, but that's life sometimes.
Yep. You also drafted to the CFL, I saw, though, mate. In fact, it said you were drafted in the first round. You were the 9th overall pick. What, did they pick punters first or something?
I think the first pick actually might have been a punter. I think they were all Australians.
Wow.
But so the way that works is they just draft the rights to it's like the international draft or the global draft, they call it. So they draft the rights to that player so that in, say, like a year's time, if I decide I want to go play in the CFL, I'll go to Edmonton and try and go for the spot there. That's kind of how it operates.
Would that be something you'd be interested in, or is that just like a nice little backup plan to have, I guess?
Yeah, I guess that would be more of a discussion to have with my wife because it's financially not as rewarding as the NFL, and that kind of would be the last sort of option that we try and pursue.
Not quite as sunny as California either.
No, I think we've had maybe 2 days under 30 in the last 2 months, so it'd be pretty hard to leave here.
Yeah.
Well, it's been raining almost constantly here in Sydney. I don't know if you've heard of it.
18 months, 2 years, it feels like it has been wet.
So I might have to come get some of that sweet Cali sunshine. We're going to ask about the other Aussies in the NFL because you've got a couple over there on the West Coast with you as well, Mitch Wisniewski, Michael Dixon. Do you have contact with those guys, or is it more you keep to yourselves and you just sort of check in on their stat lines every so often, see how many inside 20s your boy Dicko kicked?
Yeah, a little bit of that, but I was really fortunate because Chappie, the coach from Pro Kick, couldn't get over in the lead up to my pro day preparation. So I was kind of banking on him to help me out just with like fixing like the nuances of the kick because it's frustrating at times. But I actually went up and punted with Mitch and he helped me out for a couple of days, which is really nice of him to do. So you do kind of build these relationships and you kind of – I found that like a lot of guys stick to their class from Pro Kick. So whoever they come over and have worked with for the previous year, they'll stay close with them.
Right.
And then it can be hard to kind of break into the other years and they're pretty cliquey sometimes. So
Pro Kick.
But yeah, in general, like a lot of guys are willing to help everyone out and it's been good. It's a good community over here.
Because normally the narrative is that the punter's sort of like left out of the team with the kicker, you know, they're on the outskirts. So it's funny to hear that even the punters are cliquey amongst themselves. You'd think they'd be champing at the bit just to get any attention, mate.
Yeah, I just like hearing another Australian voice. Honestly, it's it can be a lot when you just got the American accent.
That's what we asked Aaron Sipos last week, what it was like being able to say hey mate to someone that can say hey mate back in Jordan Mailata in the Philadelphia change room. Very rare for an Australian NFL player.
Yeah, that must be nice. I was a little – I mean, there are other Australian athletes at USC, so I wasn't completely alone, but certainly in the locker room it was hard sometimes.
So are you just waiting now? Is there a chance that you might get called over to one of the team's practice squads or to try out mid-season, or would it be something that you would have to wait till the start of next year's camps again?
That'd probably take a little bit of luck. I mean,
those 22-yard shanks. That's what it'll take.
Need those headwinds to pick up in Buffalo and Boston. No, I guess, it just depends on how guys are performing and what teams want to do. I know that this year they added a few extra spots to the practice squad, which is gives me a little bit more hope that maybe I could scrape onto one for a couple of weeks at the end of the year if the visa comes through, and then work from there. So yeah, I've just got my fingers crossed at the moment.
When was the last time you had a kick? Yesterday, day before? Is it something you're doing regularly?
I went this morning. This morning actually.
Yeah. Well, like hitting them all right? 55, 60? What are we talking?
I was kicking on a soccer field, actually, so it was hard to tell, but it
felt
was an
good,
all right day.
Yeah.
I felt all right, yeah. I was a bit sluggish this morning, actually. I rolled out of bed. Coffee didn't really hit the zone.
Who do you go down and train with? Is there also like a local long snapper who's waiting to hopefully get on a squad as well, and he's teaming up with you? Like, fuck yeah, let's go practice some kicks.
It's funny you say that because our housemate at the moment, it's actually my old long snapper, so he came down. So yeah, there is a long snapper in the area, and been very helpful.
Yeah, that's so handy.
And then the other thing I'm always interested about is, I'm guessing this would have probably been a bit more at USC, but did you have like a specific trick play book as well that they'd written up? Did you practice any sort of fourth down and short trick play conversions, or had they just decided from the get-go that, mate, you were not going to be trusted to handle the ball?
No, in my first year, we every Monday we'd install all the fakes. That I had pass fake. There were like 3 different run options. And then we'd go into the build up to the game, and special teams coach would be like, all right, this is the week, we're going to do it. And then come game time, just never did it.
Yeah.
And then in my final year, we had a few, we had like a fake field goal where I was going to like just pick up the ball and turn and run.
Yep.
And we got out there for the first time. We hadn't even spoken about trying to call it or anything. And the other team was like saying, watch 24, watch the run. Like they knew. Then I went back and I was like to the coach, like they like were saying, watch the run. And I was like, I didn't have the thought, but that kind of squashed any chance we were going to run that one.
You were having premonitions of taking it and wheeling around and seeing the DN just eyes wide waiting for you.
Waking up with stars in my eyes. I'm not about to do that. That's yeah.
That's a good time to stay in your lane, I think. Just punt it.
Has the temptation ever been there? Have you ever caught one and looked up and been like, geez, the edges look a bit flimsy here. Maybe I could take off down the field?
There was one against ASU, and I probably should have actually, but just was too paranoid that I wasn't going to get any protection if I just left the pocket, because we weren't the greatest last year at completing assignments and finishing all blocks, so I kind of just put it on the foot.
Yeah, it took the safer out with that one, I think.
Yeah.
I feel that's a great reason to not have a run, because you're questioning protection. In NFL, big deal. Big deal.
I read it, didn't like it. And the other thing in the back of my head is, if there was a year I was going to run a fake, it had to be 2019, because that's when I was my youngest. I mean, at 30, I'm not going to be any quicker than I was, so I didn't really feel like it was a great idea.
Wise decision, mate.
I want to see them bring you in for plays like quarterback sneak, but it's the punter sneak, mate. I reckon we could utilise that. The big 6'7", just lean over the top, mate. Slam dunk it into that end zone.
I'd go to jump, dive over the pack, and just get absolutely mauled, I reckon.
Denver need a 4th and 1 option outside of letting Russell throw it. So, I don't know, but hey, topic.
Too soon.
Hey, that'd be a great place to end up. I'm not sure who's there right now, I think. But hey, kicking in Mile High Stadium. Is it a big thing? Would you much rather be in an indoor stadium or at altitude, or what they call it, altitude at least? Or
I'd take the indoor stadium, I reckon, just because it's probably more consistent. Like, you might get the altitude in a place like Denver, but then you're also dealing with the cold and potentially windy conditions.
Snow from November too. No thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, if the season ran through summer, I'd take Denver for sure.
Very pragmatic.
Yeah, that is very fair. Or you could also hopefully one day land at my Miami Dolphins, where it is also very sunny. I imagine you would have a good time there. I think that is just about all we have time for, though, mate. So I would like to thank you very much for all of your answers. And from me and Ted, we do wish you all the best. Good luck on your journey. Fingers crossed that visa comes through soon. And yeah, hope you enjoyed your time on the Onside Kick, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you next week.